The world knew Arthur Sterling as the Steel Lion. A man who had built a multi-billion-dollar empire from nothing but a handful of rivets and a relentless will. He owned the skyline of Manhattan, the shipping lanes of the Atlantic, and the silent loyalty of kings. But I didn't know the Steel Lion. I knew Grandpa Artie, the man who smelled like old paper and cinnamon, the man who taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by the weight of their gold, but by the calluses on their hands. My name is Maya. And 6 months ago, I was a ghost in my own family. My mother had committed the ultimate sin in the Sterling bloodline. She fell in love with a high school music teacher. For that, she was quietly erased. We weren't invited to the galas at the Sterling penthouse. We didn't fly on the Silver Eagle private jet. While my cousins, Julian and Serafina, were posting photos from yacht parties in Ibiza, I was pulling double shifts at the city hospital, finishing my nursing degree, and trying to figure out how to make a single grocery bag last for 10 days. Then came the Tuesday that stopped the world. The news banners flashed across every screen, Arthur Sterling dead at 82. The funeral was a performance. My uncles, Richard and Julian Sr., wore suits that cost more than my apartment building. My aunts wept into silk handkerchiefs, glancing at their watches to see how soon they could get to the lawyer's office. I stood in the back, in a dress I'd borrowed from a friend, feeling a hole in my chest that no amount of money could fill. Grandpa was gone. And I was truly alone. The law offices of Sterling, Vance, and Associates were cold. Steel and glass, high above the clouds. My family sat in a semicircle of velvet chairs, radiating an aura of impatient greed. "Let's get on with it, Marcus," my Uncle Richard barked at the lawyer. "We have a board meeting at 4, and I expect to be chairman by 5. Marcus, a man who had been my grandfather's shadow for 40 years, didn't flinch. He opened a heavy leather folder. "Arthur's will is unconventional," he began. "He believed that wealth without character is a disease. Therefore, his $40 billion estate will not be distributed today." A gasp of pure horror rippled through the room. Instead, Marcus continued, "Arthur has set a challenge. To determine who is fit to carry the Sterling name, each branch of the family must manage one of his original assets. The person who shows the most significant growth and integrity over the next 6 months will inherit everything. The others? They will be cut off. Completely." He turned to my uncles. "Richard, you will take over the Sterling Grand Hotel." Richard smirked. "Easy. I'll double the room rates by Monday." "Julian, you will manage the Sterling Luxury Automotive Group." Julian leaned back, grinning. "I'll fire the union workers and automate. Efficiency is profit." Then, Marcus looked at me. The room went silent. My cousin sneered. "And Maya," Marcus said softly. "To you, Arthur has left the Blue Moon Diner." The room exploded in laughter. The Blue Moon was a legend in our family, but for all the wrong reasons. It was a crumbling, grease-stained roadside dhaba in the middle of a dusty industrial district. It was where Grandpa Artie had started 60 years ago. It was a relic. A joke. A diner? Serafina cackled, checking her manicure. "Perfect. The maid's daughter gets to be a waitress." "It's poetic, really." "The rules are strict," Marcus thundered over the laughter. "No outside capital. No using the Sterling name to get favors. No hiring celebrity consultants. You start with the cash in the register, and nothing else. If you fail to turn a profit, or if you break a rule, you are disqualified." I looked at the key Marcus handed me. It was old, rusted, and heavy. "I accept," I said, my voice barely a whisper. The Blue Moon Diner was worse than the pictures. The neon sign hummed with a dying flicker. The vinyl booths were cracked, held together by duct tape. The kitchen smelled of 50 years of fried onions and broken dreams. When I walked in that first morning, the two remaining staff members, an old cook named Sal and a waitress named Elena, didn't even look up. "We're out of eggs, out of coffee, and the gas bill is 3 weeks late," Sal grunted, flipping a gray-looking burger. "You the new sacrificial lamb?" "I'm the owner," I said, tying an apron around my waist. "And we're starting with the floors." For the first month, I didn't think about billions. I thought about pennies. I spent my nights scrubbing the black grease off the walls until my fingernails bled. I used my nursing skills to reorganize the kitchen for efficiency. I walked 3 miles to the local market every morning at 4 a.m. to haggle for the freshest vegetables because I couldn't afford a delivery service. Meanwhile, I heard rumors of what my uncles were doing. Richard had secretly funneled millions into the Sterling Grand Hotel through shell companies to renovate the lobby in gold leaf. He had fired the entire cleaning staff and replaced them with underpaid migrants to increase profit. Julian had been caught on a leaked recording offering bribes to safety inspectors to overlook the faulty brakes in his new line of SUVs. They were winning the game, but they were losing their souls. At the Blue Moon, things were different. I started making the golden recipe, a simple, slow-cooked lentil stew my grandfather used to make for me when I was sick. I priced it low so the truck drivers and the local factory workers could afford a hot meal. I started listening. I listened to Old Man Joe talk about his wife who passed away. I let the neighborhood kids do their homework in the back booth so they stayed off the streets. I turned the dhaba into a home. One night, a man walked in. He looked exhausted, his clothes covered in coal dust. He ordered a coffee and sat in the corner. When it came time to pay, he realized he'd lost his wallet. The old Maya, the Sterling Maya, might have been told to call the police. But I just refilled his cup and handed him a plate of stew. "Pay me when you have it," I said. "Everyone hits a bump in the road." He looked at me with an intensity one couldn't describe. "You're a Sterling, aren't you?" "Only by blood," I replied. "By heart, I'm just a cook." By the 5th month, the Blue Moon was humming. It wasn't rich, but it was alive. We had a line out the door every lunch hour. The truck drivers had started a pay-it-forward board, where they'd buy a meal for the next person who came in hungry. Sal was smiling. Elena had a new pair of shoes. We were making a profit, a real, honest profit. But at the top of the mountain, the Sterling Empire was screaming. Richard's hotel had been hit by a massive strike. The staff he'd mistreated had walked out, leaving his gold leaf lobby covered in trash. The high society guests fled. Julian's automotive group was facing a federal investigation. His efficiency had resulted in 3 major accidents, and the bribes he'd paid had been traced back to his personal account. They were desperate. And when the Sterlings get desperate, they get dangerous. 2 weeks before the deadline, my father, who hadn't spoken to me in a decade, showed up at the diner. He didn't come to hug me. He came with a briefcase. "Sign the diner over to Richard," he said, slamming the case on the counter. "There's $5 million in here. It's more than this dump will ever make. You're winning the growth percentage, Maya, and we can't have that. The board won't accept a waitress as the CEO of a global conglomerate." I looked at the briefcase. It represented everything I'd ever wanted as a child: security, a way out. Then I looked at Sal, who was watching from the kitchen. I looked at the pay-it-forward board. "Get out," I said. "Maya, don't be a fool. You're a Sterling. Act like one." "I am acting like one," I snapped. "I'm acting like the man who built this diner. I'm acting like Arthur Sterling. You're the ones who forgot who he was." He left, cursing my name. That night, the diner was vandalized. The windows were smashed, and "thief" was spray-painted across the door. I knew it was them. They wanted me to quit. They wanted me to use the Sterling name to call in a favor. I didn't. I picked up a broom, called the local community, and by noon, the windows were boarded up and we were serving soup. The 6 months ended on a cold, rainy Monday. The family gathered one last time at the Blue Moon Diner. It was a bizarre sight, billionaires in Italian silk sitting in duct-taped vinyl booths. My aunts held their noses, disgusted by the smell of fried onions. "This is a farce," Uncle Richard shouted, pointing at the boarded-up windows. "Look at this place. It's a slum. I managed a 5-star hotel. My revenue was in the hundreds of millions. And your profit margin was negative 40% due to the lawsuits," Marcus the lawyer said, walking in with a briefcase and a projector. "Irrelevant," Julian shouted. "Maya didn't do anything but feed bums. She hasn't managed an asset. She's played house." I stood behind the counter, my apron stained with flour, my heart steady. I managed exactly what Grandpa asked me to. I grew a business from 0 to a 15% profit margin without a single bribe or a single cent of outside help. "Enough." Richard stood up. "Marcus, award the estate to me so we can sell this dump and move on." Marcus didn't move. He set up the projector. "Before I announce the heir, Arthur left one final message." This was recorded the day before he died. The screen flickered to life. There was Grandpa. He looked frail, but his eyes were like flint. "If you're watching this," the video began, "it means my children have failed. Richard, I know about the shell companies. Julian, I know about the safety inspectors. I didn't set this challenge to help you make more money. I set it to see if any of you remembered what money is for." The room went deathly silent. My uncles turned pale. "Wealth is a tool," Grandpa continued. "If you use it to build walls, you are a prisoner. If you use it to build bridges, you are a leader. Over the last 6 months, I had private investigators and secret shoppers visiting every one of your locations. I was the man in the coal-covered jacket who Maya fed for free when she had nothing. I was the bum Julian had kicked out of the showroom." I gasped. The man with the coal dust, it had been a plant. A test. "Richard, Julian, you are disqualified. You cheated. You lied. You broke the fundamental rules of the Sterling legacy. As of this moment, your allowances are terminated. Your homes, which are technically owned by the Sterling Holding Group, are being reclaimed." "He can't do that," my aunt screamed. "But Maya," Grandpa's voice softened, and for a second, it felt like he was looking right at me. "Maya, you understood. You didn't just save a diner. You saved the people in it. You treated the smallest customer like a king. You are the only Sterling left with a soul." The video cut to black. Marcus stood up. "By the power vested in me as the executor of the Sterling estate, I hereby name Maya Sterling as the sole heir to the $40 billion fortune and the chairperson of the board." The silence was broken only by the sound of my Uncle Richard's phone hitting the floor. "You're joking," my cousin Serafina whispered. She's a waitress." "No," Marcus corrected her. "She's your landlord." The realization hit them like a tidal wave. My parents, my uncles, the cousins who had spent years mocking my cheap clothes, they were suddenly, officially, broke. "Maya, honey," my mother stepped forward, her face a mask of fake affection. "We were just testing you, too. You know we love you. We'll help you run the company. We'll move into the mansion with you and—" "No," I said. The word was small, but it carried the weight of the billions I now controlled. "What do you mean, no?" my father demanded. "We're family." "Family is a verb," I said, stepping out from behind the counter. "It's something you do, not just a name you carry. You threw me out. You tried to sabotage the only thing I had. You treated Grandpa like a bank account." I looked around the crumbling diner. "Marcus, What is the status of the Sterling Grand Hotel and the other residences? They are under your total control, Miss Sterling. You can evict the current occupants immediately. My family held their breath. I could see the terror in their eyes, the fear of finally having to live the life they had forced on me. I'm not going to evict you, I said. A sigh of relief went through them. Richard started to smirk again. But, I continued, I'm not giving you a cent. The mansions will be turned into low-income housing and community centers. The Silver Eagle jet is being sold to fund a national nursing scholarship. And where are we supposed to live? Serafina wailed. I picked up 3 spare aprons from the counter and tossed them onto the table. The Blue Moon Diner needs a new morning shift, I said. Sal needs help in the kitchen, and Elena needs someone to bus the tables. There's an apartment upstairs, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. If you work hard, if you learn to treat the customers with respect, I'll pay you a fair wage. You can earn your way back into the world. You want us to work in a dhaba? Richard looked at the apron like it was a death warrant. It's a great place to start, I smiled, the same smile Grandpa Artie used to give me. It's where the steel lion began. Let's see if any of you have his teeth. 1 year later. I sat in the mahogany office on the 80th floor, the steel lion's desk in front of me. Outside the window, the city hummed. But on my desk, there wasn't a gold trophy or a diamond paperweight. There was a rusted brass key and a small spice box. I still go to the Blue Moon every Friday. I don't go as the CEO. I go to check on my trainees. My Uncle Richard is actually a decent dishwasher now. It turns out he likes the routine. Serafina is still terrible at waiting tables, but she stopped crying when she breaks a nail. They're learning. Slowly. Money can buy you a piano, Grandpa used to say, but it can't buy you music. I looked at the latest quarterly reports. The Sterling Group was more profitable than ever, not because we fired people, but because we invested in them. We built daycares in the factories. We gave every employee a stake in the company. I leaned back, the scent of lemon polish and cedarwood filling the air. I could almost hear Grandpa's laughter echoing through the glass hallways. I was Maya Sterling. I was a nurse, a cook, and a billionaire. But most importantly, I was finally, truly, home.